Hello everyone, this is Richard Carlton and welcome to the FileMaker User Group meeting for August 2015. This is FMPug Without Borders. And once again, my name is Richard Carlton. I'm a senior engineer and CEO of RC Consulting and a training at learningfilemaker.com. A number of you have asked for an ongoing user group meeting. Frequently I hear from people who don't have a good local user group. Well, this user group is really for you. This new worldwide user group, which we started last month and we're continuing, allows us to offer you the best possible contacts too, but content for sure, when DigFM is not available. Now, every month I coordinate with FileMaker corporate staff to determine if we should do a live broadcast from their location there in Santa Clara, California during the DigFM meeting. Now, sometimes FileMaker wants us to broadcast that user group meeting, and some months it doesn't really make sense to do this. Instead of just abandoning everyone for months at a time, we're picking up the slack ourselves and bringing you some awesome content. Now this month is one of those months where we're going to be running our own broadcast and not with DigFM. So tonight's conversation is about a 90-minute time or so that we've kind of clocked this out a little bit. And you're going to be encouraged to ask questions along the way so we can respond to those, but you're going to type those in. We'll get to that in a second. But the content for tonight is going to be some pretty cool tricks that have come up in DevCon, some more advanced topics, and then towards the end, a little bit more of a simple topic, but we're going to get into this optical character recognition in FileMaker and some brand new stuff that we've put together to show you, and actually we're going to send you sample files so you can play with it and think about how you might use it in your database. And so we'll get things rolling. Now, right before we push off here, I'm going to quickly mention that this broadcast is sponsored by learningfilemaker.com, which we have our FileMaker Pro 14 video training course, which is highly rated. In fact, this basically part of this is what won the award at DevCon that we received, which was really neat. So all the training that we do, all the videos that you watch, was finally recognized by FileMaker. Pretty cool, and they gave us an award for that, which was neat. Now, as a reminder of the additional free video sources that are out on the internet, we have FM Starting Point, which we're continuing to update. In fact, John, you've updated a couple bugs this week with it, and we have an additional release that's scheduled to come out on that fairly soon. There's other videos that are available at FileMaker webinars, FileMakerVideos.com, and those are all our free courses. Now, if you want the complete, concrete 33-hour course, that's available at learningfilemaker.com, and it's $49. Unless you're an Apple employee, in which case Apple has a site license for this training. So see your internal resource website for that information if you're an Apple employee. Additionally, I want to point out some videos that we've just released in the last 30 days or so, one of which is two-factor authentication with Taylor Sharp, right? I was going to say Taylor Swift, but that would be Taylor Sharp, who's not nearly as good looking for the record. But Taylor is pretty sharp with FileMaker, and he helped us shoot a great video. And we also have a video about dynamic navigation, which is those the button bar tool in FileMaker 14 to programmatically set those up and have them automatically home in on layout names and things like that. It's pretty trick. It's really cool. Both those topics are more advanced topics. Migrating from Salesforce, more of a beginning and intermediate topic, but it's if you haven't experienced moving off of Salesforce, there's some good content there for you as well. So we have previous recordings, of course, at FileMakerUserGroup.com down here. You guys see my mouse when I do that? I can. Awesome. And so down here, FileMaker User Group, that's where we have the signups for the website for the next user group, as well as FileMaker videos for the free videos. Now, I want to briefly mention that in the next 30 days, we are going to publish our brand new video course, which will be posted to udemy.com. This course is called FileMaker for Entrepreneurs. If you want to get into a business or thinking about getting into a business where you're going to build a software app to address a vertical market, this video course should really be considered mandatory. It started off as something that we were going to do in a couple hours, but the problem is that I have all this knowledge built up for the last couple decades, and it's all like spilling out of my head. And it's not about building a FileMaker solution like the technical how to screw it together. We already have a course for that. This course is all about the building or the budgeting, the planning, understanding the development costs and bugs, deployment, and really we address the question of, is FileMaker the right tool for you? And we've spent a lot of time on this. In fact, I had engineers who were stealing copies of this, giving it to potential customers out there they were talking to because it explains so many important critical tasks. So with that in mind, I want to mention our first opening act in the circus tonight. And Matt Petrowski, we're going to be demoing some software that he has created. Matt won't be demoing this. We have Mr. Steve Allen, who will magically unmute himself now.
Hello.
And Mr. Steve. And Mr. Steve is a senior engineer with RC Consulting, and he is going to be kind of walking us through this demo that Matt put together. And I called Matt on the phone, and he said, oh, yeah, definitely show our sample file, and mention, of course, the fact that Matt runs FileMakerMagazine.com. It's another good resource for videos. Now, his videos are decidedly on the advanced end of things, so if you love advanced videos, you know, obviously I would always say recommend buy our videos too, but his videos are advanced and they cover some really deep topics that I won't necessarily get into just because they're so deep. And so I highly recommend, I personally have a subscription to Matt's training course. I like it a lot. So with that said, I want to transfer control to Mr. Steve Allen, if we can do that, and show his screen. And this demo that we're talking about is really the idea of going with a web URL, a FileMaker URL protocol to activate a database, right, Steve? Is that what we're doing here?
It's to activate a script on hovering over an object, which is really cool because FileMaker natively set through this technique doesn't really have hover over a script activation. So it's a bit of a hack, as Matt says himself on the blurb he has on his site for this, but it is an interesting technique, and you learn there's a lot of little pieces that you may not be aware of either that even on their own would be useful to you in your development. So putting it all together help see the technique and some other techniques too. So.
Well, why don't you show us real quick what it does and talk about the potential implications, and then let's tear it apart and explain how it works.
Okay, just to confirm before I do this, because it's very important, everyone can see my mouse as it moves around the screen, yes?
Yes, I can definitely see that.
Okay, excellent. Because the main effect here is that when I go over, now I'm not clicking, just for the record, I'm not clicking anything, I'm just moving the mouse. So I go over this, and out pops a sidebar. I come out, it goes away. Or you can do it on just the in and not the out. Close it on the in, not the out, that kind of thing. Also, you notice this hover count updated. So clearly there's some scripting happening here, but I'm not clicking anything. So that's the huge part of the technique. That's like the whole result of the technique is that, whoa, wait a second. He just scrolled over that and a script ran. How the heck did that work? So that's what we're going to get into.
That's very cool. So why don't you, show us how that. Yeah, well, then walk us through. We'll start with the protocol. Explain the protocol first. I guess that's because it's a multi-part trick.
It is a multi-part trick, and one of the difficulties of talking about this trick is that there's actually two separate realms in which two certain words are used, and they mean different things in those two different realms. So try not to get confused here. I'll try to walk you through it so as not to confuse you. Here we go. First thing is to run any script using a URL. You can run in FileMaker a script just by calling a URL. This is called the FMP URL Protocol. And that works, let me pull up, for example, a browser here. I'm going to grab the URL that's actually being used in this. Give me just a second here. I should have done this earlier. It's going to be web viewer setup, specify. I'm going to grab that. Okay. Okay. And then I'm going to evaluate that, paste, evaluate. Okay, so this is actually the URL here. It's calling this URL. So let me copy just that. I'm going to go back to my browser here. and paste it in here. Now this is the file name, and this is the script name that I want to run, and this is saying do it on my machine here and not on some server somewhere.
Now, you might want to be to browse mode there before we get too far with that. So.
Yeah. Okay, so what happens is, hold on a second, I accidentally closed my window. Okay, so you put it in here. Apparently, Google isn't recognizing it when I run it like this, but most of the time, if you call the URL, it will actually open up FileMaker, and we'll see that in action in a second. So this is your URL. You call it, and the Windows or Mac, if you're on a Mac, will recognize that and say, oh, that FMP beginning. So again, let me break this down. This FMP beginning, most of the time you would see HTTP or FTP or whatever. This is FMP. So that's how your system knows FileMaker is supposed to do something. And this is called FMP URL Protocol. This is the URL protocol part. This is the URL. So protocol URL. That's why they call it that. You specify the file name.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
And script name.
And just for fun, get rid of that $$ on there, and that might do enough to kick it over the fence.
It might. Okay.
Yeah, try that.
I haven't actually done this through a browser in a long time, so like that.
Yeah, try that. See what happens there.
Nope. Google wants to do it. So
Google wants to search it. Okay.
there are some details on how to make the FMP URL protocol, which are not coming to my mind right now. I think RCC has a very old video available on that. We actually need to update that. But and there's white papers out there. You could do a Google search, FMP URL protocol, plenty of resources. That in itself is pretty big, because then if you're writing an app on an iOS or something, you can actually have it call a URL and run FileMaker Go or whatever. So a whole other topic. That's not the point of the demo here, but that technique is available for as the underpinning of this technique. So in this demo. Now what happens is we need a way to call that URL without having to click anything, because we could put a button on the layout that says Open URL. That would be super easy. It would work. But we don't want them to click anything to get this effect. So how do we do that? Well, in web viewers, JavaScript can call a URL. So that's what we're doing with this. And let me actually pull this back up here. You can see in the web viewer, the web address here is, let me move this over here. I got to make it a little smaller because I'm on my second screen, which is bigger. And I got to make it smaller. Thought I did this earlier, but apparently it didn't take. Okay. So we have our data text HTML. This is a way of having it render HTML without having to have it on a server somewhere. So if you need to, just know that you copy that and put it in front of your HTML, and it will actually render the HTML.
Well, this is what spawns our URL protocol, right? I mean, this
is what generates the HTML, which has in it a JavaScript script. That's this tag here.
Okay.
Which, when run, calls our URL protocol. Yes. It's a chain several links long, and it's really easy to get mixed up on it. So we need something to call the URL protocol. JavaScript can do that. We need a way to run the JavaScript. HTML can do that. We need a way to render the HTML. WebViewer can do that. So it's kind of, you have to step. The good news is that if you're trying to replicate this rather than simply having to generate, like come up with it on your own, all you got to do is copy this and then change your script name here to the script you're trying to run. So it's kind of already written for you.
So they just have to, adjust the run me, and that's all we need, because that's the name of the script.
Right. This is the name of the script here. So just get rid of his script name he has there. Obviously, it's getting the file name already, so it's doing that programmatically. You don't have to worry about that. So just get a hold of the demo copy, just highlight all, copy, paste into your own web viewer, and change the script name, and you're off to the races. Okay, so that is the actual. If we go back to the data viewer and actually evaluate this calculation, this, I'm going to copy this into here so you can see it, is the result. And then that gets shoved into the web viewer as the URL to run. And what happens when that happens is this tells it treat everything after that as the page. And this, in HTML, because as soon as it hits there, it's a script tag, so it runs that script, this JavaScript script. And that's where I said it gets a little confusing because you're talking about FileMaker scripts and you're talking about JavaScript scripts, and they're not the same. So this JavaScript script, this line here, gets run when the HTML paints. And I say paint specifically renders.
Redraws, or redraws.
Yeah, every time it redraws, this runs. Now, it only runs if it's different, so we're updating the ID based on the timestamp so that it'll be different every time it does.
Okay, so that's an important subtle thing, and you flew over at about 900 miles an hour. So let's go back and look at the code again. If you can undo, and put the original code back in there?
Let me do that. So, no, I got to go back.
Yeah.
There's no undo.
That's fine. We can just look at it right there. It's fine. Or if you hit specify, or yeah, that's fine.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, and so what happens here is that it's going to try to cache the results and that kind of thing. And so in order to ensure that every time you hover over this, it fires, it has to be a unique URL. So what we're doing in there is putting the current timestamp in milliseconds, which, so, you know, the timestamp in the machine is always, it's like a clock, tick, 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 tick. It's always going. And so every time you press this button or hover over it, that number is going to be different, which results in this URL, the script, being different every time. And so therefore, the browser inside the machine, because basically web viewers are a browser that's being driven by the operating system, it will run it every time because it sees it as being a unique script.
And it says, I don't have this unique script in my cache already, and so I've got to rerun it. So it does.
Yeah. So if you didn't put that get as number in there, then it would think, oh, it's already cached, and so it wouldn't really do it again, right? I mean, it's one of those. So you'd have a script that would run sometimes, and other times it wouldn't work, right? And you'd be like, why
and you'd be pulling your hair out trying to figure out why.
Yeah.
And it has everything to do with caching.
So this guarantees it's completely fresh. And as goofy as that is, it's just one of those little, you know, if you're a developer, like programmer kind of developer, like Steve, like you are, you do a lot of PHP, this little hack kind of thing right here is not uncommon. This stuff.
It totally makes sense. But if you're not living in the cached web world, in FileMaker terms, you're like, wait, what? It would not run a script? Yeah, it wouldn't. It would just say, oh, I already ran that. I don't need to. So you have to tell it, no, you do need to, and that's how you do it. So. All
right. So now the hover over part. I mean, can you explain how it did? I mean, the reason why didn't we build this with a button in the first place? We could have built it with a button, right? And then
we can. Yeah, we wouldn't need any of this URL stuff. We would just call the actual FMP URL protocol that is listed right here. We'd just call that part and call it good if we were putting it on a button.
So why is this technique needed in the first place?
So that we can get non-click hovering as they pass over things. So, for example, in this case, they have a web viewer way out here in the middle of the layout. You could put one over here and have it be like an arrow, right, or something, so that when they roll over the arrow, the mouse comes over here, the thing pops out. And that's a pretty standard thing in apps and even online these days. And even in Windows, for example, if I can't show you because I have the presentation mode a different way, but in the latest version of Windows, if you throw your mouse in the upper left-hand corner, it comes. In 8 it does this. I don't know if it does it in 10 or not, but anyway, if you threw your mouse in the upper left-hand corner, one of these sidebars would pop out. So this lets you kind of replicate that user experience. If you have a Windows shop or even a shop who saw it on Windows and kind of likes it, and they say, we want to be able to do that. Because screen real estate is at a premium these days. Even the screens are bigger than ever, but we're shoving more and more onto them. So in order to simplify things, this gets into kind of UI design, but which I don't want to delve too deep into, but in order to simplify things, keep things out of the way until they're needed, that kind of idea, this particular sidebar technique would be great. You can use it for other stuff too. Say you want to have, let's see, give me an example. Okay, so the script doesn't have to do anything visually. It can just make a log somewhere. So if you have the need to log the fact that their mouse went a certain place on the layout, then you could use this. Might come in handy. Because
I have a question. So show us how we would. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Your
well,
question.
I was going to say how you I mean, it's a very basic question, but how do you actually edit that sidebar? Because it's there sometimes, but it's not there, and that's a slide panel.
This is actually a slide panel. The sidebar is inside the slide panel. See, here's the bar, here's the panel. The panel is actually set in its appearance to have no fill and to have no lines. And it looks like it has a corner radius, but anyway, it has no lines. So it's basically a hidden slide panel. It's also set to not enable swipe and not show navigation dots. This basically renders the slide panel as nothing more than a hide me, show me kind of thing, or show different layout segments under different conditions, controlled by script.
Yeah, you could totally build this out with multiple. Back and forth. Yeah, you could build this out with totally like a dozen different little sidebars in there, right?
You could, absolutely.
In fact, there's a, I'm spacing on it, but another major FileMaker developer on the East Coast. How come I'm spacing on this? They make the Jarvis product. They they were talking about this in a blog, but they don't have a sample file available, which is too bad. But they were talking about how they were trying to put this into their applications and whatnot. It's just a little bit of a magic trick. I mean, assuming that you understand how it's activated and you're good with that, then the rest of it is just managing what's on the actual tab or the panel itself, right?
Absolutely. And you mentioned I'm a senior engineer for RC Consulting. In that, in the pursuit of my duties, I have to do a lot of UI for clients. And I had a client who was doing one screen, he wanted it to be, and he had it was on an iPhone, but he wanted to be able to go quickly through a long list of things. And I said, well, if we put the list on here, it's going to be kind of awkward. So, and there's nexts after each one. I said, well, we're going to make like 12 layouts or 13 layouts and have to keep state across layouts and blah, 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 and there's some transactional stuff going on too. And I said, let's just throw them into 12 slides and have the continue button be one button that just triggers the next part of the script kind of thing. And it was a great thing. So as far as slides, this hidden slide to show different layout parts at different times is becoming a regular standard technique. Now you'll notice in the position tab here of the inspector, the slide is actually named. So the panel.1, and we go to this one, and this is panel.2. And that's very important because in order to control this by script, let's actually take a look at the script for a second. You just go to Object, and you say if panel 2 is the front panel, go to panel 1, otherwise go to panel 2. So you use your go to Object script step to manipulate that slide panel. You can also use it, and I've seen other demos of this technique. In fact, I think if you're a subscriber to FileMaker Magazine and you look up this technique on FileMaker Magazine, the demo file that comes with the article you find, actually I think I have, yeah, this here is the file, the URL. So if you want to take a look at that, this is a subscriber-only article. This is the non-subscriber view of it. So I can't download this, but anyway, this file, if you're a subscriber and you download it, that file actually has, not using slides, it actually uses popovers in a very interesting way. So you can, anything you can do in a script, bringing it back around to the beginning of this technique, and the whole purpose, anything you can do in a script, if you can call that script, you can, which you can with this technique, you can do it. So this technique lets you call scripts without having to click anything and without having the user say, okay, click this here. No, just if your mouse is in that area, which is relevant, then do it for them, and it's very interactive. In this demo,
and for the record,
we're using a slide.
Yeah. So Jerry Robbins is our onboard comedian from DevCon, who I hope to see a lot more of in the future. He was he was the emergency comedy routine at the Developers Cup, for those of you who saw DevCon. If not, we have to get him in here as a speaker sometime, so when we get in between demos or something breaks, he can start doing jokes in the FileMaker community.
Or he can provide the color commentary as we're going.
Well, exactly, and it'd probably be rolling on the floor laughing. So he mentioned that it is Scarpetta Group, and I talked to them. I talked to Joe, I guess, right? Joel Scarpetta, and he indicated that they didn't have a demo yet, so because I was going to show his tonight as well. But they both kind of work on the same technique here. It's pretty slick. So, and for those of you who haven't had a chance to, don't know, kind of like the little bit of a DevCon wrap-up here, and to give you a little bit of a future view of what's happening. So there's a sample file that's going to be coming out to the public. It should be coming out any time, any day, if it's not already out by the C Code folks. Jason Young did that, and it's an integration with Dropbox, so you can interact with Dropbox and see that. And so I don't want to pre-release that tonight because it's really theirs to release, and once they have it out the door, we have a video interview with him, and that's going to be pretty exciting as well. And then there's another great demo from Skeleton Key, Greg Lane, and that's another one that we're going to want to talk about that, I think, in a video, in a well-animated video, because it's sufficiently complex. And that's the idea where if you, Steve, you're familiar with this, we have a perform script on server, and when you tell the server to perform a script, what ends up happening is that the server just knows to run a script. It doesn't have the context of the layout you're on, or the found set, or the found count, or anything, right? It doesn't know anything. And this is a way of actually telling the FileMaker server at high speed what your context was, so it can pick up and do things for you, if that makes sense. And
yeah,
so it's basically
there's a bunch of things you can do with this technique. Anything you can do in a script, you can do with this technique, because the whole point of the technique is to call a script, but without having to click a button. Or specifically in hovering over something that is relevant to what you're trying to do. So that brings us back around to how the heck are we actually getting the repaint? Because if everybody knows you have a web viewer, the web viewer is loaded. In order to get that to repaint and therefore recall the script, how do you do that? Because it'll just sit there forever until you reload the layout. But we're not reloading the layout in this case, we're just moving around on the layout. So how do we get that repaint to trigger? That is where the part, this is kind of a hack part, comes in. It's the result of FileMaker's new, I don't know how new it is, a couple versions now. In the styles, if I select the web viewer itself, and I go to Appearance, this drop down here, choose a state for this object. And there's normal, hover, pressed, and in focus. If I say hover and make it something else, so this gray color here, for example, now every time that state is triggered, so when I hover, in other words, or when I go out of it and the hover goes away and we trigger out of that state into a different state, anytime the state is triggered, the web viewer has to repaint. So that's where the two techniques come together. FMP URL is called via HTML in the web viewer. How do we get that to repaint? With this hover trigger, basically. It's not an official trigger, it's a state change, but the state change triggers a repaint, and the repaint triggers the script call. So that's how it all ties together. So.
And it's a very interesting use of, once again, I think of Jerry Robin a little bit about that, because, it's always, tricks of the hand and, like almost like a comic routine about how to take standard technology in FileMaker and abuse it a little bit.
Well, this is sleight of hand, haha.
Yeah, exactly. And so people are asking about getting this into starting point and stuff like that. If we can figure a simple way of doing this, now, to be upfront with everyone, and this has not been publicly discussed before, there's been some ongoing conversation with FileMaker Inc. about Starting Point, and they definitely think that Starting Point, while it looks nice, they would like to see it updated to a fresher version of the operating system, or fresher UI look, I should say, so it looks like it comes from Apple and it looks all really happy and pretty. And so, of course, they're on me to update the user interface. So we're in the process of kind of reskinning Starting Point, and along the way, if we have some simple to understand UI things that we can do, we will do that. The trick is, though, with Starting Point is that we have a lot of people who don't know really too much about FileMaker, and we don't want to make it so perplexing to them that they get scared off and they run away because it's too complicated. So it's always a battle, at least with me. Not so much, I think, with the Star Solutions from FileMaker, because they're not worried about that so much. They want them to be technology demonstrators. But Starting Point really is the starting point for a lot of people to learn a little bit, and we don't want to make it too complex. But if we can roll something like this in there and make it easy to understand, that would be fantastic. Now, I do have a question here from a random person. I don't even know who this is. This name is Oscar. I think he's one of our staff. And he is asking the question, Steve, if you can see it there. It says, is this better than using base elements with because it doesn't require a plugin? He's got some. I don't know if you've used that base elements plugin, Steve, with the execute script on it.
This actually, I wouldn't say it's better or worse. It's when you use a plugin. I mean, this is definitely a hack. Don't get me wrong. So a plugin to be more clean, kind of native, right? But again, it's not really technically native. You're using a plugin, and with all the pros and cons of plugins. So the answer is, I wouldn't say better is. I wouldn't say worse. It's kind of different.
Yeah.
This is a way of doing it, quote unquote, natively.
You know, and Base Elements has made, I can't remember one of their plugins, open source, and there's a lot. I mean, even Todd Geist leverages that. That Base Elements plugin is for those of you not familiar with Base Elements, definitely go check it out. They make a lot of great products. We own their products, and as well as they've made a couple of their kind of mission-critical plugins, I think, open source, or at least one of them.
Yeah, I do want to say, though, to his point, this is... this technique is not something I would use everywhere. I mean, I could see using it for like a help thing where you have you hover over the question mark to see, but we have that in tooltips. So maybe if you wanted to open a popover instead with a video inside, which I think is what Matt does in his in the demo on the subscriber version,
Yeah.
then that would be useful. So your tooltips are still just text. So if you want something more than that, having this open a popover instead would be very useful. Beyond that, it's kind of limited. I mean, we don't do a lot of things with hover. So if you can think of something to do with hover that you want to trigger a script, and you don't want to use a plugin, this is the technique to use. Otherwise, learn a few things about FMP URLs, about data URLs, data text HTML rendering, using slides to display different things. There's a lot of different little techniques in here that you may not have been aware of. So the demo shows all of that and how to throw them together. The actual usefulness of this technique on a day-to-day basis is probably maybe 0.1%.
Well, I would give it more than that, but the biggest issue that I can finish making the case for you about this, and that is that specifically, mobile devices, there is no hover of your finger. At least these devices are not smart enough yet. Now, I could see Apple weaseling their way into having a hover sensor into it, but
no, it's going to be what you look at, I think. But anyway.
Well, yeah, they figure out what you're looking at or where your finger's within a half inch of the sky. It does, in a lot of ways. It doesn't translate well into mobile, and I know some of the people out there, and I'm picking on Jerry tonight because he's there, but he's sitting there screaming at the computer, it's the mobile. Yes, I know. And that's the rub with that, right? So, well, cool. So we have any parting comments here, questions from people? We've actually had more people diving into this meeting right now, which is interesting. So for those of you who are late to the meeting, never fear. We're going to send out the sample file, and this session is recorded, although our smiley, happy face is not recorded. We only get that sometimes, and so just so everyone sees that. Also, we have our new deluxe beer ice chest here. Is the R2D2 beer ice chest with the flippy lid, complete with adult beverages inside. So we are all very happy about that. And of course, with the Star Wars lunacy that's getting bigger and bigger, I've been hearing threats about Jedi night fights and whatnot in the hallway. So we'll have to keep an eye on all that as we go forward, because we aren't supposed to tear up the nice, pretty studio in here. So
don't play with your lightsaber when you're drunk.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't have any final questions there. Questions from the? Yes, we do. Question out loud. Let it rip, baby. What is it? Maybe not hovering, but the slide out function. Yeah, okay, so you get a slide out function in FileMaker, it'd have to be activated by press of a button, right? So, and I think
or
that's
a layout trigger or something.
Yeah, some sort of trigger. So I want to confirm that William Vaughn is available. William Vaughn, can you speak up? Are you there? Are you presentable?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, so go easy on the microphone there. You are loud. So I'm going to segue the conversation in. I'm going to thank Steve Allen for coming today. Thank you, Mr. Allen. We all appreciate it. Everyone's clapping. We are going to segue out to showing my screen at this point. And we're going to talk about some technology that William has actually helped us set up, and that is specifically the this Tesseract software, which is was originally built by HP. It's open source OCR software. Is that correct, William?
Yes,
give me the rundown. I mean, I came to William. William's one of our senior staff, kind of on the more geeky side of things, right, William? I mean, I would say, and I mean that's a bad thing. It's just that, you know, if I need some hardcore coding set up, I called Jesse Barnum. I said, hey, do you have a plugin that does, or you thought about doing a plugin that does OCR? And he said, yeah, kind of. We thought about it. We kind of hacked something together, and it kind of worked, but it never really took off. And so I went to William and said, how do we build OCR? And of course, there's the Freezon, something like that. They're a European concern, and they charge on a % basis. But I just wanted the ability to set up a server, have the server run, and do OCR. And so we actually have that functional and running, which is kind of cool. Oh, yep. And so the file is right here. Can we see my screen? Yes, loud and clear. Right on. And so what we have is the software was originally called Tesseract. So the reality is if Marvel wants to get into a contest with HP about that, they can do that. But HP called the software the Tesseract. So I'm not sure what the Greek lineage of that would be, but it is basically open source OCR software. Now you built basically a server that allows us to treat this as a web service, right? I mean, a plugin would have been nice, but then it wouldn't really work with WebDirect or FileMaker Go very well. So, William, will kind of walk us through what you did. We have an Amazon server, right? We built an Amazon virtual server, and then what did we do?
Well, to sort of back up, from my perspective, it was sort of an interesting conversation. You came to me and asked if we could do OCR, optical character recognition, and I had actually looked at Tesseract earlier in the week for a different project, and optical character recognition basically means you take a scan or a photo, and the software examines the image, looks at the pixels, and tries to figure out, you know, where the letters are, where the lines are, you know, put them into words, get things sorted out, and put them into text that you can manipulate. I think the example you gave would be for recruiters. We have a template for them.
Yeah, and so the backstory on this is that we had a product called, it's RCC Recruiter, and largely we built a recruiting software because the one that FileMaker had was kind of rough, shall we say, and rough is being charitable. So it's easy to understand, that kind of thing, but there are commercial recruiting software, headhunting software pieces of products that are out there, and I was like, well, how come FileMaker's not competitive? It should be competitive. And we didn't get a lot of traction, whereas starting point, we have over 100 downloads a day, and it just goes and goes and goes. It's very popular. Recruiter was kind of never really took off. We couldn't figure out what the problem was, and the problem was that there was no easy bolt-in OCR because everyone, as they're processing candidates into the OCR, want to drag and drop a resume in and then have it searchable. So it's not that the text is pretty. I just did this one right here in front of everyone. And there's some funky question marks here that obviously mean that if we looked at the image here, there's some sort of artwork there or a dot or some sort of whatever it is. I can double-click preview. Maybe not. Is that going to come up? Yeah, and so this is a resume, and there are little dots here. So I turned the dots into question marks. But the point is that this is searchable. Then if I'm looking for something and I want to type the word UI designer, interface designer, or Seattle, or whatever I want to do, instead of it being non-searchable, it instantly becomes searchable. So that was the impetus, that was the driving factor behind this. How hard would it be for us to get some sort of integration with OCR? Because OCR was a big deal a while back, and then suddenly along the way it kind of, at least in my opinion, it kind of died. People ask me questions all the time. I can't remember the last time someone really asked me about OCR. I think a couple of our staff have asked in the last month or two. I mean, William, do you see OCR very often? I mean, sometimes.
No. And that kind of segues into the first demo I showed you. I had it set up to just do scan documents. And I remember you took a Word document, dropped it on there, clicked the button, and looked at me and said, well, where's my text? Yes. And the solution that we have, part of being able to do this through the web viewer, have it on the server, our software doesn't just run optical character recognition, doesn't look at it with an eyeball. It also defines what kind of file it is. Is this an image file? Is this a document file? What kind of PDF is it? Is there text in there, or is it just an image? And it also tries to pull the text out where it's possible. So it also works with Word documents and text PDFs. And so in that respect, it's actually more powerful than a lot of OCR software.
That's correct, yeah, because what ends up happening is that we found out, I mean, something you kind of sense anyway, is that there are PDFs that you might make out of FileMaker out of Word, and they're largely text-based PDFs. That's why they're so small. Then you have image-based PDFs, which are huge, but they're what comes out of some sort of, scanner. And the reality is we need, listen, I'm a business guy. I'm not, I put my business hat on, I take the developer hat off, and I just want it to work. I don't care what kind of document it is, unless it's something stupid like AutoCAD, which in case I get a slap on the hand for being dumb. Any normal document, Word, Excel, Power, not even really PowerPoint, but different types of PDFs and things, this thing should handle those automatically. And so you had to add additional processes to kind of filter these things out, correct?
Yeah, so what we have right now, basically it looks at the file type, and if it's an image or if it's an image-based PDF, it shoots it through Tesseract and does OCR, and we'll scan it page by page and try to figure out what's going on. If it's a text-based file, like a Word document or a text PDF, it shoots it through a piece of software called Tika, which is put out by the Apache Foundation, open source as well. And Tika looks at the text file, and it's really very rigorous. I mean, it supports all sorts of crazy text files that haven't been used commonly in a decade, and it tries to get as much of that text out of there as possible. We currently have it configured to just pull the raw text, but it'll try to pull out formatting and everything else. And this is an example of the web viewer and web services really expanding FileMaker, because this will work on a solution where you don't have to have a plugin installed, because this is very simple. Richard will make sure we get the demo file here. All we do is basically base64 encode the container data, shoot it up to the server, and then the server handles all the details of trying to look at it, turn around upside down, try to figure out what's going on, and then process the text and then return it to the web viewer. And so other than basically providing like the file name, some information, the MD5 hash, so we know like that the file's not a duplicate, things like that, it just basically, must be a text-based document because it goes a lot faster.
Right. Now, I want to point something out about this file to everyone so they understand. So our go-to-market strategy on this is going to be very low cost. It's like very low cost. And if you want, we will be able to put together your own server on Amazon that runs, and so you don't have to worry about Tesseract or Tika or anything like that. We will just magically deploy William, like the 82nd Airborne will drop onto your server and configure it for you, and that'll be it. William, I mean, what's the monthly hosting cost from Amazon if someone has their own server? I mean, to run this on.
It depends on the size. I think we're paying around $50 a month, and that's we beefed that up for testing purposes. We shot through performance testing this morning to sort of hammer on it and have push a number of processing jobs through at the same time. But that would basically depend on how much power you need. That's the great thing about cloud-based services. If it's not going fast enough or you're pushing too many documents through, you just go log into the control panel and make the server bigger, and you have more performance.
Now, it's important to understand that the current server that we have that we're running, it's a Linux server, so you don't need Windows for this, right? This is a Linux install, so we're saving money there, right?
Yes, no license cost. All the software we're using is open source.
Yeah, which is great. So you're just paying Amazon for the rental. So what ends up happening is that every time that we drop a document in here and it runs through the system, what ends up happening is that it takes basically effectively a single thread or, well, a single processor on that machine. We did some timing and testing and watched the processors, and we actually you did some work to optimize this. So if you send, so we have 4 cores on that OCR machine. So if you send 4 documents to it simultaneously, each document is processed in its own core, correct?
Yes. So since we have a 4-core machine, I think this morning we shot a dozen documents through it at the same time, and basically, especially for the OCR jobs that you're looking at images, they're a lot more complex. You can basically only do 4 of those at a time. So you can run those 4 in parallel, but when the 5th one kind of has to wait in line. So if you have 1 or 2 documents, that's fine. If you were pushing you wanted to be able to handle 16 documents at the same time, you'd want to be able to have a server that had 16 cores, so it wouldn't slow down. It'll process more than 4 at a time. It's just beyond 4, they start slowing down because they have to get in line, kind of like kids on the playground and wait their turn.
Yeah, you know, you want to ride on the Ferris wheel or whatever. You have to take your turn to get on, and then it runs. So now something else that we noticed with this process. Initially, we were doing this with the insert from URL command, which was talked a lot about at DevCon. And the insert from URL command, the problem with it is I've kind of got in FileMaker's face about this. I know a lot of people complain. Insert from URL largely is async or synchronous. So which means is that when you run it, the FileMaker kind of pauses and waits until the results come in, correct? Right, William?
Yes, and the problem with OCR is depending on the document complexity. The more complex it is, the larger number of pages, it can actually take 10, 15, 20 seconds to process. The document you just did, because it's text-based, returned in 3 or 4 seconds. But with the insert from URL, you kind of have the little barber pole moving in the modal dialog, and you can't do anything other than sit and watch, which I remember the first time you put a larger document in there and it sat there for 20 seconds, and you just kind of looked at me like, what are we going to do about this? This is not going to work.
Never. No, it doesn't work because people. No, listen. The rule of thumb is that if people have to wait more than about 15 seconds, there've been studies on this. Anything over 10 towards 15 seconds, their brain literally disconnects and they go wandering off looking for a beer, an R2, or a water, or a coffee, and they leave and they come back and they don't remember what they're doing. So FileMaker has to always be kind of snappy. It's why container fields prior to FileMaker 12, you know, suck so much, right? And why they're better now. And FileMaker has listened to our requests. Well, so we had to find another way of doing this. And what we do, so everyone understands this, is we have this set up as basically an asynchronous process. And you could script this with script triggers on screen. I know some of the more senior people out there can see this. You're going to get this file. But what happens is I'm going to run this through. I'm just going to drag and drop this on here. So we have another PDF. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on Script Debugger here on the screen, and we're going to watch what actually happens here. And you'll understand how we've made this asynchronous, which is really cool. So what happens is you drag a document on there, it doesn't immediately show up. You could have a script fire immediately at this point because it's asynchronous, which means it's going to go off and get this in the background for you, which is cool. But I'm going to press a button so we can watch the script debugger run. And so the first thing we do, of course, we see it's going to fire up the script. And then it's been commented. And the whole idea is that what we're going to do is capture the name of this window right here. It's very important. So we're going to commit the record. We're going to capture the name of the window into this variable. And then we're going to come down here, and we're going to pop a new window. And the new window's over here. So this window is going to have some web viewers on it that are going to go out and talk to the OCR server, right, for us. And this record here in this base, I don't want to say base table, but the table occurrence for this is the same as over here, and the record is the same as this one right here at this moment. And so then if we progress through here, we say turn off the formatting bar, format the window, go to a different layout, and then what it does is it sets a interval, an on-timer script right here, which of course is probably going to screw up now since I'm running this in a debugger. Oh no, it's already waiting for me to finish. So then what I do is I tell the system that it's gone here, it's got this process running, come back over here to the main window. And so I'm going to go ahead and finish that, and then it's going to do some, now that script that we had an on-timer script trigger set over here for this window, it fires in 2 seconds, and it starts polling to see the results of what's come back, right? And if it gets results back that it likes, then it finishes and completes. And so that's kind of where we're at right here. And so it finishes. And so we get the results here. So the whole idea is that we kick it off and get it going, and then it does and goes and gets it on its own. You could run this on perform script on server, right? Couldn't you have the server do this, William? Probably.
I'm not sure it'd work with the web viewer. The web viewer has to have a context. I don't think that works on the server side.
That's a gray area. I don't know. I'd have to check that. Maybe one of our experts wants to chime in and discuss if web viewers will forcibly you can force them to render on the FileMaker server even though they're not being displayed on screen. That's a good trick question. What's that? We have a question? Question. How secure? William, how is secure is this process right now? Oh, well, you can talk about how it, explain how the documents are stored up there and everything. So go ahead.
So at the moment, we don't have a certificate, so it's uploaded clear text. But obviously, in transit, all you need to do is add an SSL certificate that covers your security in transit, just like you would with your online banking. We have a script set up that goes through and clears all the scanned items out every 15 minutes or so. That's not for security purposes. It's just that once we've got your text back to you, we don't want to store your document anymore. There is, with any cloud service, like if it's the secret recipe to Coke or Colonel Sanders chicken, you probably want to be more careful with that. Obviously, with recent data breaches, there's no such thing as totally secure, but we go to great lengths to make sure that we hold on to the data for a limited period of time.
Yeah, so what's important to understand is as you run this and that window pops over here, it's got your persistent ID from FileMaker. So for those of you who know what that is, that's basically an ID number that's a big long 16-digit thing or whatever it is, and it's specific to your install only. And so then your install is talking to our server to try to go find a specific document, and when that text becomes available, basically it writes the text on the server, and then we retrieve the text. And so it kind of keeps running in a loop until the text comes back. And once it gets the text back, it saves it, which you see over here, and then it closes the window. So it kind of it's like a process that runs and dismisses itself. William, it's very clever. I appreciate because I had not thought about how to solve this. That's a good solve for that problem. Now, the rub, of course, is that if you wanted to, what we're going to probably end up offering is people want something pretty cheap and inexpensive. We'll turn on the SSL certificate. We'll get that installed. William, we need to add that to your to-do list, obviously. And then, but if you really are like, say, highly anal about this, and you're, I don't mean to put that. I don't mean it derogatory. It's that some people really they have someone's public resume. It would take something serious to hack that to get it out of there. And if it's a public resume, then how secret is it? But maybe people have secret documents, in which case you're going to want to run your own server for this. In which case we just what we're going to do is we're going to image and snapshot our server, and then as a service for you, we will build you a server, and it'll be up on Amazon. It'll be in your account, your name, your credit card. You pay for it. And then you pay the $30, $25. I think as low as $20 a month, William, probably, and they go up from there. So it can be done pretty inexpensively. And that way you don't have a plug-in. It works on WebDirect, although we need to test that, but it should work fine on WebDirect. Although you can't pop the window that way, so that'll be interesting. We'll have to see how we play with that.
On the security side, I will say that there's nothing to prevent, since this is all open source software, there's no licensing, there's no reason that you can't have the server set up on your local network. Basically, if you actually did have secure documents, you didn't want to leave your premises, you just have your OCR server, sitting in your secure server closet on an isolated network, and then the information never leaves your network.
Now that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. Because most of the documents, when I talk to people who are doing resumes and headhunting, they're collecting people who might want a job, and then they try to match them later on. That's been the kind of the use case for this information. And of course, we have on that server under your ID, under your persistent unique ID, which in and of itself is fairly secure. We have the document, and then it's gone after 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is. We set a job in there that just blows it all out. So, so the idea is that it creates it, it saves it, and then your web viewer over here retrieves it back. And then there's another 5 or 6, 8 minutes with that document sitting there. You could go and re-request it. In fact, there's some optimization we can do there with that. If you re-request the document, we don't have to re-scan it again, which is kind of cool.
And
go ahead.
In addition to the persistent ID, the documents are also keyed by their MD5 hash. That's what we use to sort of make sure that we don't have a situation where somebody's requesting the same document over and over again. But again, that's another layer of security. There's a very large key space there. I believe it's 128 bits, and so if somebody's going to request your document, they have to do so by the MD5 hash. They can't just request it by import methods of PDF.
Yeah, so that is going to take maybe someone could hack that, but I And I know NSA could do it, so it's one of those sort of things. Now, once again, if you're trying to hide from the federal government, we recommend you disconnect the internet from your office immediately so they don't get into your network and watch your documents, okay? Because they can do that. Just ask the media. They know. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. I'm not one of those people, but there's been lawsuits about certain agencies getting into people's machines to dig into stuff. So anyway, when it's a point of a court battle, it's real. So the same way with Dropbox. If you have something super secret, don't put it in Dropbox because you don't know who else at Dropbox's office could get into it. But if you have stuff that's reasonably, not gonna, like nuclear launch codes or something, then yeah, you can post it in a process, have SSL encryption up and down, and you're in pretty good shape. Most of the hackers are looking for an easy fix or easy kill, something easy where someone left the password as 1234. So I guess that should bring up something else. We're going to send this demo out to everyone so everyone understands how this is going to work. There'll be two modes on the demo. One is like, we're going to basically offer a free service for people who just need random documents done. And what it's going to be is you can do one off of your machine every 5 minutes, and that's just it'll be free forever. And then if you think that you're in the business where, like if you're like a talent agency or a headhunter or something like that, you're going to want more than one resume every 5 minutes between you and whoever in the office, whatever. So you're going to either get a license code for us and pay us, I don't know, $10 a month or whatever it's going to be, or you can have your own server set up. So we're going to send you a code. Notice the code here is our super secret 1234 code. You'll have some sort of test code where you can play with this. If you turn this off and remove the code, you don't have a code. What I want you to do, everyone to do, is verify the fact that if they go and put a document in, say we put a document in right here. See, have I done one? So we'll see if I get the error message over here. Normally, so it does that. See, and it got it this time, right? So then what if I clear it and do it again, William? Will it?
It's your trigger, yes. It's been 5 minutes since the last time you did it.
Yeah, but see, it's already pre-cached, right? See, that's the rub with that one. So let me try a different document here. See, that one's pre-cached too. Functional sample. Let me try another one here. Maybe you're secure.
Make sure the license key is cleared.
Yeah, I thought I cleared that. Let me see. Yeah, it's cleared. Yeah, there it is, and that's the 5-minute error. And so you'll see this, and then we're going to give everyone the code for this, and we're going to play with this for the next, say, month or two, a couple months. And this is for yours to play with and have fun with, and maybe you like it or maybe you hate it, whatever. Tell your friends if you think they need it. And then you can just put anything in there for now. If you put any number in here, it doesn't matter what it is, something, it will bless you as being authorized, right? So then it goes out and retrieves and gets the information for you. So what we're doing is then in a couple months, that server will be shut down and will go away, and we'll spin up our final production server. But this is a test server for you to help play with this and see if you like it and if it makes sense for your business. So we have any residual questions here? This meeting went a lot faster than I thought it would. It really did. There's been very few questions. And I don't have Jerry here. I need emergency comedy routine alpha. Jerry, where are you? To the bridge. So we need Jerry. But he's not on our audio chat, so we can't have him. Maybe next time. So if you have questions about the user group meeting or what we're doing, some of the demos that we have set up, please drop us a note. Let us know. Send an email to support@rcconsulting.com. Question. So someone's asking me about the video training and what the video training offerings are and what the upgrade paths and things like that are. So let me briefly just mention this as we close down this conversation. LearningFileMaker.com is our video learning department of RCC. It's actually it's spinning up to be a separate corporation. Currently, we have a Pro 13 video course. If you look here, we have a Pro 13 video course right here and a Go 13 course. The Mobile 14 course is still in production. It's taken a lot of work. Plus, we have that Entrepreneur course, which is going to be out really next before anything else happens. And so if you already own the Pro 13 course and you want the Pro 14 course, it's either half off or it's free, and it depends upon when you purchased the Pro 13 course. So if you want to drop us an email at support@rcconsulting, we'll send you a special link where you can either get it for free or pay us $25 or whatever it is, half off, and you get that for free. The entrepreneur course will be coming out along with the mobile teen course. The reason we've changed the name here from Go to mobile is because really in this course we're addressing Android devices with WebDirect as well as FileMaker Go on iPhone and iPad. So it's becoming, it went from like a 7 or 8 hour course to probably it's ended up being 15 hours. It's kind of a big course because we're dealing with a lot of content. On the same lines, so that is the paid training. If you go to FileMaker videos, this is actually a word. All these other sites are actually regular HTML or they're driven by FileMaker somehow. FileMaker videos is a WordPress site that we maintain. My marketing team actually will post videos up here of the latest videos. So, for example, we talked about the two-factor authentication and whatnot. These are free videos. In fact, the user group meeting videos are cross-posted here. But there's 23 pages here of videos, right? And they were all updated for FileMaker 14. So all that information, all that content is there. It's available. But see, when someone says, well, there's a lot of videos in here. This is as good as the pro training. No, it's not, because there might be 3 hours of overlap here with the pro training, and the other 30 hours you're only going to get if you pay for the pro training. And like I said, if you happen to be an Apple person, it's a site license for you folks, so go to internal resource, because Apple, we arranged, they have a site license for the software, so it's a pretty good deal for them. They don't have to buy it directly. It was handled outside of normal channels. So anyway, so that's the training courses that are available, the free ones here, as well as the pro video course that you can get here. So additional questions at all? 20 to 30 documents a day. I mean, you're going to be under the 5 per minute limit, so it would be pretty much free, I would think. Someone's asking about the scanning of the technology. With the technology, let me minimize that. But back to this stuff. If you're doing 20 or 30 documents a day, you're going to be under the 5 per 1 every 5 minute. What we want to do is we want to make it so people could play with it, it'd be free, it'd be useful. But if they're really using it more often, then they ought to kick a couple bucks up to the Department of William at RCC and pay for all the R&D time, because we have quite a bit of R&D time building this stuff. And so it would be nice to not be totally broke, since most of what we give away is free already. So. Oh, okay. The William, if they put a URL in here, could you go and scrape? Well, you can already do that right now. You don't need an OCR. You can scrape the text, and that's kind of another conversation here. William, you still there? We still have you here? Okay. Yeah. So you can do a insert. You can get the get container. Is it not get container attribute? Get web viewer. Get the what you do is you get the attributes, the source of a web viewer. I have my eyes closed because I'm trying to bring this back into my head.
Yes, get layout object attribute.
Get layout object attribute. We have a video actually on that in the paid course. It's not free, and but in there you can actually specify different attributes you can bring back. And if that object is a web viewer and it has HTML in it, and you say source, it will bring back all the source from that page. Now that includes all the little HTML squiggles and stuff, right? So I don't know. You'd have to parse that out or remove that. I don't know if there's another senior person that has, if there's another attribute that would allow you to, Oscar, if you're around, have you used another attribute to try to just to get the text out? Because I know source gives it to you, but it gives you more than you want is the problem. So
yeah, I think the standard thing to do is run it through a custom function that peels out the tags and the non-text tags.
Yep, which brings up another great tip since you folks are here today. Oh, that's Chrome. Let's get rid of Chrome. Chrome is bad. A lot of people like Chrome. I just am a Safari guy. So what I'm going to do is for that, we go to Brian Dunning, who has a custom function website. We won't discuss the rest of Brian. We love Brian. Brian is a marginally controversial subject, but outside of that one topic, he has a great custom function site. And in here are all sorts of custom functions that you can search on. And they do all sorts of extra crazy cool things. There's nothing in here that says read OCR or read text. That would be really cool. But yeah, like here's Scott Love, another major FileMaker contributor. Tim Simbura, right? If I pronounce his name correct, Kevin Frank. I mean, all these are ace hitters in the FileMaker community. So they've all created functions in here that do things. And so you could, you could go in here and do a search and put HTML in or something like that, and maybe, figure out how to strip the HTML. So come up with some functions. So you bring down all the HTML stuff, and then it strips it out. So style text, yeah, you'd have to go through this and look at these. But this right here, if you're not familiar with this Brian Dunning custom function website, this is money in the bank right here. This is good stuff, really, really good stuff. I highly recommend this site. So anyway, any other questions before we wrap up? Well, we appreciate everyone. Please feel free to email me if you have questions or comments or suggestions. Next month, we're going to see if we can get tied in with DigFM on who they have coming in there. If they have an appropriate level of content, we will be broadcasting live from FileMaker headquarters, which is always kind of a cool thing. And we'll have to drag R2 down there somehow, prop him up on stage. Anyway, so that's it for now. I want to thank everyone for coming out, and I appreciate it. And look for a recording of this and also an email directly to your mailbox about the sample files probably tomorrow. All right, thanks. Have a good evening.